Hello, hello. How are you? All right. Why do I not see myself? There we go. Yay. I was afraid I went live on my page again, which is fine. Like, that's not that big of a deal, but it's supposed to be like here. So, hello, everybody. Mass-produced cards are boring, so let's make some super easy, fun cards that are definitely guaranteed to make your recipient feel loved and valued and appreciated and make you feel good about your creative talents. So I am actually doing a make and take at my vendor space in September to celebrate the shop's 4th birthday. And so, of course, I want to do birthday cards. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to make up my samples by coming on live with you all and doing that. So I've got several different things that we're going to do. And that's super weird. Okay, there we go. Making sure I could see the comments. I have several different things that we're going to do. Some super easy. And then a couple, if I have time, we'll get into maybe a little more complicated things that sort of stretch me a little bit. We'll see how this goes. So let's go ahead and get started. You all don't need to see me. You just need to see the layout. And of course, I forgot to grab a card base. So we'll just use my watercolor paper for that too. That's fine. I thought about it and then I got distracted. So the first thing we're going to do is one of my favorite ways to make a card, and that is just with paper scraps. So we're going to get my score tape and my glue. I am, as usual, unprepared. Go figure. And the funny thing is I thought I was going to actually get on early today, or at least right on time. Of course, that didn't happen. But you all are very generous and forgiving, which I truly appreciate. So I've got my bone folder and my scissors. And got a little glue stick. And we're just going to use this card base, this watercolor paper. So this is 6x9 watercolor paper. And I'm just going to fold it in half to make my card base because I forgot to pull some out. And of course, you do not have to have special card bases. You can just use cardstock or anything like that. That and a bone folder, say that 3 times fast, will work just fine. So I have this whole bag of paper scraps that I have kept from various things, scrapbooking. Some of this came from making cards in the past. Anytime I'm cutting up paper and I have more than about an inch wide and a couple inches long, I tend to keep the piece because I know that I can use it. And I like to use these to make cards. And we've got 2 ways that I like to do this. One is diagonal, which we'll do. So you'll just take your paper, and I usually start in the middle and work my way out. But the other way that I like is what we're going to do first. And this is just sort of lining it up to look almost like a quilt block. So you're going to want a variety of sizes of paper to be able to do this so that you get some good variety in there and you can go any direction that you want. So I'm just gonna kind of lay this out to play around with it, and then we'll start gluing stuff down. All of my pieces aren't always cut the same, like, and by that I mean straight. So you might have to kind of adjust your paper in various ways. And I don't think too much about keeping it on the page. I line it up the way I want it, and then we take the card and trim it down when we're finished. So we're going to end up kind of doing that a little bit as we go. And it's really just random. It's almost like making a collage. I don't necessarily approach it with much rhyme or reason. I'm trying to give myself a little bit of workspace that is in the camera view, which is part of my... I like the width of this desk because it gives me lots of room, but sometimes it's a little hard to get my camera positioned in such a way that you all can actually see what I'm doing. I also have like this little corner piece that I used for something, and so we're going to actually start with that because I like that. And we're going to, what are we going to use here? Do I want my glue stick? No, I'm going to use my Tombow. I vary, and I have different different types of glue that I like for different types of projects. So some of my paper crafting kits that I've been doing lately, I've been using glue sticks, and that works really well. I do like this Tombow liquid glue. This right here, I'll put a link to that. They make a like a white glue that I used last night in a class for the first time, and I like it. It works really well. It comes out of the tube way faster than the liquid glue, which was interesting. Kind of threw me. I was like, wait, what's happening right now? This does not. And then here we can do a bunch of different things. So we can either cut paper at an angle to line it up, which is what I might do, but we're going to do the outer edge first. So I'm going to take this piece of pink paper and we're going to put it right there. And for this, I'm actually going to use a glue stick for this part. I'm going to put the glue where I want it. And then we'll just put the paper down on top of that. And then again, I'm going off the edge here, but what we're going to do when this is finished is we'll turn the card over and we'll trim around the edges, ultimately just creating more scraps that you can use for cards at a later time. And then we're going to take this piece and I'm going to put that right there. So we've created a little boundary, so to speak. And then we'll take various pieces of paper and now This is me. Probably not absolutely necessary, but I'm gonna kind of draw a line roughly where I need to cut that angle. It's not going to be perfect. All right, so actually, now that's an interesting way to do it. But I still want it like this. Let's see, actually here. Whoever knew we were going to have to think about geometric alignment to make a card. There we go. So that drops in there nicely. And I'm going to let that go all the way across there. So we're going to put the glue stick on the back. I'm still trying to figure out, tried to do this once in like a wheel pattern, like a circular pattern. It did not quite work the way I wanted it to, so I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm determined to figure out how to make that work. And we're going to do the same thing with this. And this worked really well, so I'm just taking my bone folder and running it along the edge of this triangular piece, and that's giving me a little bit of a line and showing me where I need to cut. That's what I was trying to do with the pencil, but the pencil just wasn't making that line clear enough for me. So the bone folder, I don't know why I struggle with that, saying that, works a little bit better. And we're going to get this piece, which will go all the way across. And it's very interesting to me in doing cards this way. You put it all together while you're making the card, and you're like, that is just a hot mess. And so sometimes I will look at these and I'll be like, I do not like this at all. Okay, so I'm putting the glue on here this time, since it's going to go all the way across, but this section of the card is bigger than, or this section of paper is bigger than the card. But then you get everything laid down and you trim off all the little pieces around the edge. And I'm just always so pleased with how it looks, which is just so interesting, because looking at it right now, I'm like, this is a mess. All right. So now this is going to be interesting, because I mean, I can cut a piece, and I will if I need to, but trying to find something that is like that exact little size. Oh, I like that there though. Okay, so let me get my ruler and see if I can figure out how much. That is almost exactly an inch wide, which is not possible because then that should be, I'm sorry, half an inch wide. Okay. No. So we're going to be a little less precise here. I'm going to take my ruler. And we're going to mark that. I've got to figure out this camera situation. And then we're going to hope that we can draw a straight line, which is, not the easiest for me sometimes, even with a ruler. But I don't want to pull out I obviously have a trimmer. I don't feel like pulling that out right now because I've got so much other stuff on my desk already. And with the amount of time this one card is taking me, I'm feeling like, yeah, I think I cut that too small. But that's okay, because you know what? I know how we can fix that later. I feel like getting to 3, which is kind of my plan for the day, might be a bit overly ambitious. Although the other 2 are pretty quick, actually. So we got that there. And then that will work right there. So we're going to put that all the way down right there. And I'm just going to use my glue stick for that. Now, for those of you, we're going to turn it over. For those of you who do any sort of quilting or anything like that, you are in a much better position than I am to think about a pattern here and actually make this look like some sort of a pattern. I don't do any sort of quilting or anything. So that is not really my thing. But if you do that, then you've got that sort of set of skills to be able to lay this out accordingly. But I wanted it to just be sort of random. Not really any rhyme or reason. That dropped in there pretty well. And let's see, I really want to put that piece in there. Oh, look at that. Look at that. How perfect. And this is also why I like double-sided paper, because it just gives you more options. Card making, scrapbooking, anything like that. Your double-sided paper just, it's more, get more bang for your buck there. Something that's a little bit, the width of this is perfect. I need something that's a little bit, just a smidge longer. Oh, that works. So then I can just trim that off the bottom. Now, I don't have any stamps for sentiments picked out at this point because I didn't want that to drive the design. If I need to, because I wanted the design to come naturally, and I didn't want to have to think about, well, I need a sentiment to go here, so I need this like this. Or even any like decorative stamps for the front. I like, when I do cards like this, I oftentimes will use a punch with a solid color and create a circle or a square or a tag or something and attach to the front of the card and stamp something or put a sticker on it or something like that. I didn't pick any of that out today because I wanted just the design of the card to kind of come forward, and then I will make all the rest of it fit later, if that makes any sense. Sometimes too many decisions made up front can constrain what you do. And I didn't want this to be like that because I really kind of wanted to illustrate that there's just, you can do this with just like no rhyme or reason. Okay. So that's that. So here's what it looks like right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over, and I'm actually going to start from up here because this is where this was the first thing we did, and so this should be good and dry. So I flip it over so I can cut from the back. And you're just going to cut along the edge. Now you can do this if you have like a crafting knife and a mat. You can do it like that. I usually just do it with scissors. And you're just going to cut off these pieces. And you can go back and trim it up a little better if you need to once you get the majority of the pieces cut off. You can also use some ink around the edges to distress if your edges look weird once you've cut the pieces off. Definitely want to make sure everything is glued down pretty well before you do this so that you don't have pieces fall off while you're cutting. There's that. And then there's that. I mean, I'm always so shocked as many times as I've done this, what this looks like after you cut all the edges off, because I think it's just so cute. And you can't really tell. Like, I've got a couple of places where the paper didn't line up quite right, and you could just take a fine line marker, and go around in those places if you wanted to. You don't have to. A little, distressing around the edges if you want. And then you can do whatever you want to the front of this. You can leave it alone. You can add some ribbon. You can add a solid color piece with a stamp design or sentiment on it, or vinyl. You can print out something in vinyl or something like that. Get a little, if you have a printable with a phrase on it, anything, or you can just leave it and then, do your sentiment stamping on the inside. So that's one. We're going to get, most of these little scraps are going to go now because they're just too small to do anything with. I'm going to hold on to that one. Got a whole bunch of little corners here. And then these are fun too, because if you have paper scraps, if you have red and green, or, this year I think pink is still a Christmas color, or if you have red or Christmas paper, you can make Christmas cards with this, and kind of do it this way with all of your scraps. So the second one is a similar concept, but the design is different. This one goes a little bit faster than what I just did. So it's basically the same thing. You're going to take your card, any size that you want, and then you're going to take paper scraps and you're just going to go at an angle. So I always start with the center because that's the longest piece, and sometimes I have to cut a piece of paper to go that long if I don't have anything, or I will go into a different collection of scraps and see if I have something that will go that long. You can also do 2 pieces. So I could make this, I could kind of butt those up together in the center of the card, especially if you're going to end up putting something in the middle. Well, you all can't see what I'm doing, especially if you're going to end up putting something in the middle. But I think for the purposes of this, ooh, that'll work. Look at that. I'm just going to have to cut that thinner. So that will fit perfectly from corner to corner. So we are going to get out my trimmer quickly. And just going to cut this in half. So that is, how long is this? That is about 2 inches wide. So we're going to cut it at about 1 inch. And this one is nice because you can use all kinds of different size strips of paper. And that gives you a lot of flexibility. You don't need any one particular size of paper. Or particular size of scraps, but you can use thin ones, you can use thick ones, and then you can cut what you need if you have to. All right, so I am going to put my glue on this, although I'm going to try not to take it all the way to the edge so that when I go to turn this piece down, I'm not cutting through glue. And then you're just going to build out from there. And again, might need to cut, I might need to cut that piece or put that piece right there again so that it goes the length of the card. Now this is a little bit wider because it's a 6x9 piece of watercolor paper that I use to make that card base. So if you have 3x5 cards, then it's not going to take as much to go that corner to corner. Obviously you can also do it this way. I like to do them this way, just personal preference, but either works. And then you're just going to start putting down more strips of your scrap paper. I have to force myself to not do a pattern, not care about whether or not I've got patterned next to pattern, and then what I'm getting ready to do right now, which is a solid color. I try to mix it up a little bit. So like on this side next, I'll try to do a piece of solid, but I'm going to do a thin piece so that it doesn't take up a whole lot of room, because I don't have much left to get into that corner. Now, for some people, you know, symmetry might be the look that they're going for, and so they're going to want to have, if I start in the middle with a patterned piece, then I'm going to alternate from there. I like to try to force myself to not do that, because my brain inherently defaults to the symmetrical, and it's nice for me to kind of push myself out of that and just be random. Just whatever I grab, if it fits, it works. Yeah? Sorry. Hold that thought. Yeah? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Scheduling conflict. Let's see. Let's dig into here. I don't think I've dug into this bag. Got some cool stuff in here, and some little skinny strips, which will be nice for finishing this out, so that I can get some nice variety in there. I'm going to come down here. So if I do this one little piece of pattern right here, then we'll just need a little bitty piece for the corner. I'm going to try to get two more pieces here. So again, that's where these skinny little strips actually come in handy, because they don't take up a lot of room and allow me to add more to the design. So this little piece right here from the other card that I kept that I can't pick up now will be perfect to like pop on one of those corners there. I'll fold this down to put the glue on. And then try to find something relatively small already to use in that other little corner. So I like this right here. So I will do that. And pop that right there. All right, so then we're just going to do the same thing. I go around like this, just make sure that I've got all the glue pushed down. And then we'll just start on one side. And trim around the edges. Ow, don't stab yourself in the process. And again, this is another one that you get all of the paper on there and you're looking at it and you're like, this is just a mess. But once you get everything trimmed off and you turn it over, it's kind of akin to the reveal on a caricature transfer, which is another thing that you can do with these. You've got some solid color cardstock and some small caricature transfers, either with a pattern or a phrase. You can throw a little chalk transfer on the card, either on the inside as your sentiment or on the front. Now, I would recommend using the surface wax if you're going to do that on paper, so that that sticky on your transfer doesn't pull up any of your paper. That is definitely a time where I think wax helps. If it's an older transfer that's been used a lot, it may not be absolutely necessary. But see, look at that. How freaking cute is that, y'all? I'm sorry. I know it's my stuff, but I just can't get over what these look like after they're finished. This is my absolute favorite way to make cards. Okay, so that's those two. And I'm going to go through those scraps and decide some of those scraps might stay because, again, they're good for the little corners. Then the last thing, and this is something that I am still, and we are definitely not going to have time for the more complicated. So I'll hold that for another opportunity. This is something that I am still learning how to do, but the only way I'm going to actually get any better at it is if I do it. So some of you might remember that last year around the holidays, I got obsessed with really easy watercolor techniques for cards, for holiday cards. And so I bought watercolor paper and I bought watercolor and I started playing around with them. And I'm still playing around with them, so just learning. But there is a really, really cute card technique for watercolor that I think is just adorable. And so we are going to do that. If I can find the washi tape. What did I do with the washi tape? Well, this will work. You can use painter's tape too. I was thinking that my painter's tape was going to be too thick for what I wanted, but I actually think it's going to be perfect. So we're going to take some painter's tape, and you all have probably seen this. I don't think I'm showing you anything revolutionary. And we're going to put it across the middle of the card. And then I'm going to push it down onto my mat to hold the card in place for me while I'm doing the thing. And then I've got my regular watercolors, my one watercolor set, but then I've got these that I think are really pretty. So these sort of metallic. So we're going to use a little bit of both. And I've got several different brushes. And so for watercolor, the trick you want to make sure is you need 2 things of water, because you need clean water, and then you need water that you can use to wash your brush. And then I always like to have paper towels. Now, with watercolor, how much water you use will determine how saturated the paint is. So we're going to use the orange brush for my clean water, or the orange cup for my clean water. We're going to come in here And we're going to get some of this. And you're just going to lay your brush down. And you're just going to make a line across your tape. So you can use washi tape for this. You can use duct tape. Or I've got painter's tape. And I'm losing a little bit of my paint as I go down here. So we're just adding a little more so I can get that line. And again, that's part of it for me with learning, is figuring out, how do I know? And that was supposed to be my clean water, but I kept dipping my dirty brush into it. So we're going to swap. See, this is also why I keep paper towels, so you can wipe your paper towels in between. All right, so then we're going to get water on this brush, and I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to get some of this ultramarine. Now this is a little bit easier. Oh, I just flipped it into my yellow. A little bit easier to see on my brush than the gold. So it was easier to tell that I had a little more on the brush. Drop that down in the dirty water. I don't know if I can do this or not. Hold on to the brush. There we go. I got a little bit of blue in my yellow paint, and I was able to just dab that out of there. So that's good. So then I have an angled brush, which we're going to use. Come over here. And I'm going to use another gold, and we're going to get a decent amount on my brush this time. And I'm guessing these metallics are probably different than the solid colors anyway, in how much paint you need, how they come onto the paper, all the things. So we got that. And then we're going to get some water. And we're going to come over here. And we're going to get some yellow paint that hopefully does not have any blue left in it. And ooh, that was a lot. And then we're going to do this. And this is just playing around, you know, I'll think about colors and stuff like that. Okay. So there's that. And then we're going to take, I don't think I have my fine liners in here, so I'm just going to, do I have a thin black Sharpie? I do not. All right, so this is just for a sample, so it's fine. I'm just going to take a black pen. Now it's probably going to bleed on the watercolor paper because it's not a fine liner. That's okay. No, actually it didn't. Nice. So we're going to draw little wicks on the candles. And then we're going to use, now this is the part of doing these things that I kind of struggle with a little bit, because while it doesn't look hard on the videos to make some of these shapes, I go to do it on an actual card and I'm like, that does not look like it's supposed to. So I've got this little kind of pointed edge brush, and we're just going to do that. That's probably way too much paint on that first one. I'm just curving up on one side, up on the other side, and bringing that together to look like a flame on the candle. Now, I will admit that does not look half bad. curve up on one side, curve up on the other, and then fill it in to look like your flame, right? Okay. So then what you're going to do, and I want oh, I only have one left in here. Thank goodness. Okay. Then we're going to add some decoration to the candles themselves. Make sure that this is dry for the most part, which I think it is. So I have a couple of different small brushes, and then I have a Q-tip. So on the gold candles, we're going to use some of my non-metallic colors. I need to get another set of these too, so that I have some different colors. Now that I know that I'm like kind of digging this, I can make an investment. I did get these on sale at Michael's last year, and I will give you a link to what they are. I kind of read multiple reviews before I bought. And I am going across the washi tape, even though that's not going to show, at least right here, so that the lines on the candle look a little bit like they're supposed to. For me, if I don't do that, I just don't think they're going to look right. I think they'll end up looking weird. This is a really nice little fine point. Very fine point brush that I also got at Michael's in a set. These and the ones with the clear handles like this have become my favorite. I don't like the ones with the wood handles, partially because I have a tendency to leave my brushes in the water for probably longer than I should. And then the wood kind of gets ruined. All right, so on the blue, we're going to do polka dots, and we're going to do that with a Q-tip. So I'm just going to dip the Q-tip in the water and then dip that in my paint. Obviously not enough. I've done this once before and it worked, but, and then there you go. Those might be a little too wet. Could also just do this in acrylic paint, because those are going to bleed quite a bit. So that Q-tip might have been a little bit too wet for that. That's okay. It's a learning process. And then I cleaned this brush really well. And we're going to get some black. And just going to make little swirlies. Like that. Nothing fancy. Just a little doodle that you've possibly done with a pen or a pencil a million times. Yes, it feels different with paint, right? And a paintbrush. But it's easier than you might think. It's actually kind of like just making the copyright symbol now that I realize doing one right side up. So we're going to do this one upside down. There we go. We've got those. And I'm going to clean this off a little bit. And then we're going to use on this yellow candle, I'm going to get some blue. Way more water in there than I wanted to, so that's okay. And we're just, ooh, well, okay, so that paint is still very wet, basically. So we're just gonna do, I don't know what that did, but this was what I was gonna do. Just little, almost like little birds. But I might have to, since this is a sample for class, I might have to redo this one. I might be able to kind of fix it up a little bit too. Or we might just use the other two for the photos, and then I'll take the watercolors and show people, and if they want to try it, they can try it. What did I do with the lid? Oh, here it is. So this is the brand is Kuretake are these right here, and then these are Gansai Tambi. So I'll get you guys links for those. And like I said, I got these. I don't think were that expensive, although they might have been on sale. I got these on sale at Amazon or at Michael's because I was not going to spend $50 on a set of watercolors when I wasn't even sure that I would like it. I wouldn't do it now either because I don't do it enough, but I would like to get more colors, so I will be watching for those to go on sale again. And then you're going to pull up your tape. Recognizing that you are going to have paint on your fingers, so be careful. All of my pretty markers are in the other room. And what you can do on this is, you can do your lettering with pencil, right? I'm not going to get super fancy with it. And I am going to intentionally go off center because I know I would never get that lined up right without having to do all kinds of measurements and things. But then once you've done your lettering in pencil and gotten it the way you want, then you can take your marker or your pen and just go back over it like that. And then once that's dry, you can erase the pencil marks if you can still see it. I mean, obviously, I would work on making that lettering prettier than what it is on this, but that's just to mess around. Okay, so that was super easy. This yellow was not dry, so I should have let this sit and dry longer for sure. Making the flames was a lot easier than I expected it to be, and I think those turned out pretty well. So that's a lot of fun, especially if you're wanting to experiment with watercolors. And then we've got, these other two that we did with just the paper scraps. And you can add whatever else you might want to the front of this. So knowing that these are going to be samples for a make and take, I will probably punch with my big circle punch out of a solid color and attach that to the front and add a little bit of ribbon and either a sentiment or the other thing that I am going to have available at the make and take are some of these, because it's a plant store. I have these Echo Park Plant Lady frames and tags, and then I have these Scrappy Boy stamps, Cute Girls, Plant Lover, pre-colored die cut pieces. And I have a die for this, so I could cut out some of the pieces in solid color, and then we could, kind of layer that on top, and then the sentiment could go in the center. So I'll have these there for them as options, and my samples I'll probably end up making up a couple so they kind of know what it looks like. Okay, that took way longer than I expected it to, which should not surprise me. I didn't mean to do that. I took myself off the stage. I don't know why I'm not used to the fact that things take longer than they should, or I think they will. All right. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I will be back next week with another video for you, and let me know in the comments if there's something that you would like to see. And I will talk to you later. Bye.